Next slide. Next slide. Oh, the next plan that I want you to work on is a health management plan. Get this in writing, you know. For starters, and this is so important, find a vet that you're comfortable working with. Vets are just like human doctors. Some of them are wonderful. Some of them treat you like idiots, like you know nothing. And I've been fortunate enough in my life to have two wonderful vets who respected what I did know, knew that they didn't know everything, but if I had a question they couldn't answer, they'd go find it out for me. What I have done also that has worked wonderfully is after, in my case, lambing season, after your babies are born, schedule a visit with this wonderful vet that you have to talk about what happened during that season. Ask all of your questions. I've learned so much from my good, trusted vets. Something else to think about is, what are you going to do in emergency? Who are you going to call? Will your vet make farm calls? Can you get an animal that's down into the vet, say a cow? Boy, I don't know. Even a sheep is, that's a dead weight is pretty hard to get into a vehicle. Will they make farm calls? What will it cost? The more expensive the farm call is going to be, the more inspired you're going to be to learn how to do your own vet work. In my case, it's $200 just to come to the driveway. So in my early years, that plus whatever work he does. So in my early years, I did rely on the vet pretty often because it's school. That's how I learned much of what I know. But as quickly as possible, I learned to do my own work. The next item, and the reason it's in italics, is schedule your healthcare work. Vaccinations, if you give them, worming, checking teeth, hoof care, schedule it, plan it, get it on your calendar. It's just too easy to forget it. And one of the keys to maintaining health in your herd is keeping on top of things. Don't wait until it becomes a problem and then you have a crisis. It's just, life is so much better for your animals and you if you keep up with everything. And teeth, you know, they're important. For example, horses need to have, it's called floating. They need to have their teeth filed down periodically. Conversely, other animals, well, horses do too, but sheep in particular, they literally wear their teeth off. And their teeth get shorter and shorter, and then they start falling out. And a sheep with no teeth, or just a few teeth, cannot support herself and support her babies. You need to keep an eye on them, check their teeth as part of overall maintenance and just checking their condition. Now, I say have a separate item to schedule periodic condition checks. It makes sense, of course, to do this while you're doing the other items like vaccinations or worming. Learn how to check the condition of your species. Learn what they should look like, what they should feel like, how lean they should be, where their fat cover should be, and schedule it in. Don't let it go. To avoid a problem, you know, be proactive. And of course, keep very, very detailed records. Notebooks on your computer, a little notepad, whatever works for you. But keep records on an index card. Keep records on every animal, what you've done with it, every condition it has, everything that happens to it throughout its life. And this is a tough one, but it's really important to maintaining the health of your whole group, is get rid of the ones that don't thrive in your system. Now, if everybody's not thriving, there's a problem. There's something wrong there. But there are always going to be one or two that just don't do as well with your level of management. So you're doing them and yourself a favor by sending them somewhere else. You know, lots of different things you could do with them. What I did, this is just a suggestion, is it was usually older animals. I would take them to the processor and have them made into chunks of dog food. I keep them in a big freezer in the garage, and once or twice a week the dogs get a pound of mutton. The dogs thrived, and the livestock guardian dogs, that seems fair. You know, they guard the sheep, they take care of the sheep, and the sheep take care of them. So whatever you decide to do with them, consider culling the animals that don't work within your system. Next slide, Cinda. Okay, the next aspect of the health management plan, next slide, is yes, have a plan. Don't wait till it happens. Animals are going to die on your farm, and have a plan. Be prepared. Contact planning, your zoning department, your health department, and find out what the regulations are in your area. What more and more people are doing is burying or composting their dead animals. You could use bark, layers of bark. That's a great system. Then those animals lived on the farm, and their products all go back to supporting the farm. Just little things to think about, of course, is you want to make sure you keep animals out of your compost pile, and that you compost it properly. Learn how to compost properly. Burial is often the best idea, certainly with large animals, horses and cattle. Find out the regulations. For example, you don't want to bury an animal any closer than 200 feet from a well. Just some basic regulations that make a lot of sense. Educate yourself and plan ahead, rather than you go down to the barn tonight to feed and, oh no, somebody's dead. What am I going to do? Who do I call? You know, have a plan. Next slide, please. Next slide. The next topic I want to talk about is parasite management. This is not only livestock, but of course, all of us carry internal parasites. With livestock, numbers can increase dramatically, and a heavy parasite load can really affect the health of an animal. You can have anemia, weight loss, low conception rates. They can get sick at the drop of a hat. It's something you have to maintain. You're going to, so there's just from the humanity standpoint, you want to take the best care of these animals that you can, and certainly parasites can really affect your productivity. Genetics are a factor. There are some breeds, some breeds within a species that are more resistant to parasites. Like, for example, within the sheep, there's some of the hair sheep are known for being more resistant to parasites. And within your herd, you probably will have animals that are more resistant, and then some that are less resistant. I suggest you consider culling the ones that are less resistant. Again, if they don't fit into your system, your method of working, they should go to another home. They should go someplace else. Next slide, please. I've got a little kind of funky looking graphic here to illustrate the life cycle, but I sort of like it. It's pretty simple. On the right-hand side, we'll start there. The parasite egg comes out the rear end. You've got a little dung pile there, if you can read that fine print. The eggs go through several stages, and then they reach the point where they're able to move up a blade of grass, and then the animal ingests it, goes down into their stomach, attaches to the wall of their stomach, matures, lives, is happy as can be, it's getting free food, and then it starts laying eggs when it matures. The eggs come out the bottom end, and the cycle continues. This graphic, if you'll notice on the left-hand side, the left-hand bunch of grass, there's a little teeny larva that's way up at the very top of the blade of grass, and it's showing I think it's a cow eating it. There have been a lot of studies on this, and I believe it absolutely, that the vast majority of parasite larvae are in the lower 3 inches of the pasture. So this goes to, and we're going to talk about this a little later, don't overgraze your pastures. If you can leave, never go below, say, 4 inches. A large majority of those larvae are not going to be picked up by your animals, swallowed, and continuing the life cycle. Then there are other benefits, of course, to the grass of not being grazed so short. But it's a real clear benefit in terms of managing parasites to not let them graze it down to 1 inch or 2 inches, where the larvae are living. Next slide, please. So the practices for managing parasites, generally, this is best practice. First off, you're giving your animals excellent nutrition to maximize their immunity levels. Rotational grazing, we're going to talk about that. Grazing pastures, resting. Grazing, resting. Schedule, again, put this on your calendar. I'm going to keep emphasizing this. Schedule to take regular fecal tests to determine if your animals have internal parasites and what kind. Knowing that information, you can then decide, well, do I even need to worm them? If I do, if you know what kind you have, then you know what kind of chemical wormer to purchase. It's a good idea to work with your vet initially to find out what kind of parasites are normal for your area and what he or she recommends as a treatment. A fecal test is extremely simple. You look for a fresh manure pile, pick up a sample. If you have multiple animals, my vet always said for my flock of sheep, pick up 8 pellets, put them in a baggie and bring them in. They will combine all those into a slurry and then put it into, look at it through a microscope and determine what eggs are in there and what species. Okay, so you know what they are, what you're going to treat them with. It's highly recommended that rather than treating them and turning them right back out on pasture where they're just going to continue to pick up larvae, put them in a dry lot for 24 hours. So in case any are surviving, they're going to pass out into a dry lot where they're not going to be picked up from the animal grazing. And then, this is key, turn them onto clean, fresh ground that has been rested a couple of months at least, if at all possible. Then do this once or twice a year, and you should be good to go. This is standard practice. It's what most people are doing worldwide. Next slide, please. However, and that has been great for a long time, there are a couple of issues, however, with chemical wormers. The first one, of course, you're giving your animals pesticides. You have to decide how you feel about that. I personally, of course, abhor it. I use another method, which I'm going to describe later. That's something you need to think about, though. The second and more important issue, maybe, I don't know, a second major issue is parasite resistance. And this is exactly what Jessica talked about weeks ago in her crop production class, talking about the pesticide treadmill. Parasites develop resistance. The ones that are resistant survive, go on, have babies. They're resistant. So the Dow Chemical has to, or Monsanto has to come up with a new, more powerful wormer. And it goes on and on. And farmers sometimes will go through, they'll have a list of 5 or 6 different parasiticides, chemical wormers, that they go through to try and get around this resistance issue. It's a problem worldwide. Next slide, Cinda. What are we going to do about this?